again and welcome to Spotlight, the interview show on RT. I'm Al Grinov and today my guest on the program is a superstar. We always try to keep Spotlight interactive, and today is one of the days when this concept has worked out. Recently, I got mail from Mr. Hugo Gilkes, who, among other things, asked me to interview a brilliant American musician, George Benson. Well, luckily, Mr. Benson came on tour to Moscow with all his jazz. So today, ladies and gentlemen, let me lay on you a great entertainer, great humanitarian, and an idol for generations of music fans, Mr. George Benson.
George Benson started to sing not long after he learned how to speak. The prodigy from Pittsburgh recorded his first song at the age of 10. However, at 15, he fell in love with the guitar and became one of the best jazz guitarists of all time. Benson says he never could choose between singing and playing music. He succeeded in both. An amazingly versatile musician, Benson won numerous awards, including 10 Grammys for instrumental and vocal performances. He plays in just about any style, from swing to R&B to pop and beyond.
Very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea.
Hello, George, and welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Spasiba.
Spasiba. Spasiba to you. Well, I want to start with a thing I just learned recently. I read, actually. Stuart Home, a best-selling British author, said once that he started his career at the age of 16 at a local factory, but after the first 2 weeks of hard labor in the shop, he quit, promising himself he'll never work another day in his whole life, and became a writer, started writing books. Was there any similar emotion that influenced your career when you were a young guy?
No, not really, because it's all been work. Even when I didn't know I was working. In a nightclub at 7 years old, I was singing, dancing, and playing the ukulele. That was work. I was a professional at 7.
At 7?
Uh-huh. So it's been work from the very beginning. But there was one point in my career when I was building houses. I worked for a construction company, not very long, and we were putting up the walls in buildings, and they came in panels, and you had to boom, put nails, boom, blah, boom, 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 boom. The faster you did that, the more you got paid. And then I realized one end of it it was a hatchet you used to cut the board. Boom, and then you break it. Then you don't with the other end. But if I missed with that hatchet, my fingers, and once I saw the potential, I was walking out of the place and the boss asked me, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I can't do this anymore, man. My fingers, I don't know what the potential is." I didn't know I was going to be a guitar player in life, you know. But
how old at that time?
I was in my teens then.
In the teens. So you already played the guitar and you already were a musician. So what made you get work in that construction site? You made it did it for money or what?
Well, I had just gotten married. I was only 18. I just got married the first time, and I was doing it to pick up extra money. I was working on the weekends, 2 nights a week playing music. I wasn't making very much money. I was mostly a singer. Everybody knew me as Georgie Benson, the singer. And the guitar was just to fill in, you know. I wasn't serious yet.
Speaking about work, hard work, labor, well, of course, when we were kids, we think about authors and musicians and think this is not work, this is fun. But as we get older, for example, I like to say that I would be doing the same thing I do now for free. And I got lucky that they ready to pay me money for that. Do you get the same emotion, or as you said, you're a professional? You do it to earn your living.
Well, I'll tell you. At one point, they wore me out. I made records when I was 10 years old, and my mother saw what it was doing to my childhood. I had no childhood. I was a professional singer, and I even had a radio show when I was 10 years old. And she saw that I was no longer a kid. So she went to my manager and she said, "No more, that's it. My son is not going to be in the music. He's going to go to school like every other boy and live a kid's life." Mm-hmm. So we went back to, we didn't have any real money or anything like that. Matter of fact, we were poor people. And so I went back to that, but I did have a childhood. I got a chance to hang around with all the friends, in school, so.
Was that the time when you recorded "She Makes Me Mad"?
That was my first record I recorded.
That was first. It was a single, was it?
Yeah.
Did it make you popular, or is it what they say about it now, or not really? I mean, at least in New York City, did he become popular guy?
He became popular locally.
Neighborhood.
I was a kid from their classroom who made records from their school, and that was big time, So. Yeah, but it was all those things that answered the question you talked about earlier. When I was doing it then, it became a chore. Mm-hmm. And a 10-year-old can't really grasp the meaning of money, what it would mean to my family or anything. It didn't mean anything to me, except after I bought some ice cream and candy. That was it. That's all the value money had for me. So it became a chore. Everywhere I went, everybody said, "Hey, little Georgie, sing something. Sing something." Mm-hmm. And I didn't like it very much.
You didn't? The kids never like, whenever you do something. I used to play piano when I was a kid. When the grown-ups got together, say, "Sasha, play something." We all hate that, don't we? I mean, it's fun to play for the friends, for the girlfriends, but not for parents.
Yes, it's not for the joy of it anymore.
But you did get a musical education, did you?
No,
not really.
My stepfather played guitar. When he met my mother, I was 4 years old. No, I was 7 years old.
7 years old.
And he found the ukulele. I told him I wanted...
Ukulele is that small Hawaiian guitar.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that one?
Well,
wasn't it exotic at that?
After he found out I wanted to play guitar, and he realized my hands were too small, he found the ukulele in a garbage can. Somebody had thrown it away and broken it all up. So he glued it back together, and he put some strings on it, and he taught me the very first chords. A couple of months after that, I was out on the street corners making money with it. I made more money in one day than my mother made in 2 weeks. Just by going out and walking around the street with the ukulele in my hand, people say, "Can you play that thing?" And I'd go,
You play a lot of guitar on Guitar Man, both acoustic and electric. What's your favorite sound? Which guitar do you prefer? Acoustic, electric, whatever?
Actually, I like flamenco guitar. I'll never be a flamenco player. I think you have to start very young.
Yeah, you have to.
It's a whole
hold your hand
concept.
differently.
Yeah, but it is beautiful style, and I think it's closer to the original concept of the guitar, which was, I think, taught to the Spanish, or they took over from the Moors. An incredible invention, and nobody plays it better, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I read in one of the papers that you used the Ibanez GB30 and also D'Angelico guitars during your recent recording. So when I see people like you having like a dozen guitars on stage and changing them, what determines your choice of a guitar? Except well, for the kind of music you're playing. Is there something specific why you choose this as that?
There are characteristics of certain instruments made by certain people. Some have more resonance than the others. Some have more tone. Mine is kind of a medium. It's a compromise between tone, resonance, all of that. I've found that if you fall in love with something, usually someone will take it from you. Somebody will steal it or it'll get broken up. So I don't fall in love with any instrument.
Really?
No.
Is that what happens?
So if it's got 6 strings on it, I can play it.
Listen, but you do prefer Ibanez guitars, and the grapevine is that you gave advice to the company, to Ibanez, which made them push them all the way up to #2 manufacturer in the world. Is that true?
Yeah,
Did you work for them? I mean, or was it just like free advice?
I actually designed the guitar.
Really?
I designed it. It was in my mind from the time I was a little boy. And so when they came to me and asked me if I would be interested in being associated with their company, and I told them, I said, you make great guitars, some of the best I've ever played, but you don't have any original designs. They said, do you have any ideas? And I said, yes. So I designed the GB10 and the GB20. The GB10 has become a classic, and they still make it. It's the flagship of their company. And now they went from obscurity. They were nobody yet. They have not made a reputation, and then they went to #2 in the world. So I'm very proud of them as a company, that they stuck to their guns making great guitars.
Listen, you also have the LGB, the Little George Benson guitar, and also the Breezin', which was named after your Breezin' album. Is that true?
It's true. The LGB means Little Georgie Benson.
Yeah, Little Georgie.
And it's not a little guitar. It's actually representative of a time in my life, a very special time in my life. And it's a tribute to the little Georgie Benson, who used to be a little guy with a great big guitar in his hand. And I thought it would be, important now to reiterate that feeling, that concept, that idea that spurred me on to become wherever we are today. I can't really measure who I am today. People tell me things, but I don't listen to everything I hear.
So you're not only in show business, you're also in guitar manufacturing, whatever.
Yeah, to a degree. I stay on the sides after I do the creation, and they tell me what the value of it is. I let them do their own sales pitch and present the guitar in the way, but they honor me in many ways. When I see the advertisements and things,
makes me wonder how you manage to keep such low profile doing that. Well, we talk about it after the break. Just a reminder that my guest on the show today is the great George Benson. Just a reminder that you're watching Spotlight. We'll be back after a break, so stay with us. Don't go. I'm Al Grinov, and just a reminder that my guest on the show today is George Benson. George, I've been listening to your music for years. You've been playing with Miles Gillespie, Al Jarreau, well, lots of people. And the sound of your music, well, at least this is my impression, has changed dramatically since Nothing's Gonna Change My Love for You, for example. A completely different sound. So did your friends, your partners, influence you? I mean, and who influenced you most? Or was it just a natural process of developing a new sound?
Yeah, more a natural process. I don't really know how I sound. I search for a particular sound that's in my head. I try to present that to the public that I play to each and every night. But I don't know how it's coming across. Sometimes I'm just as surprised to hear myself as other people are. I say, is that me? Is that what the sound that I have? I'm amazed to hear what comes out. But every day is a different challenge. I keep trying to improve my sound. I'm looking for the same sound that Charlie Christian had, and Kenny Burrell, and Wes Montgomery, and a few others. So I'm a combination of all of those sounds in my head.
You combine easy listening with classical, with intellectual, more complicated jazz. Well, why isn't it happening today with most of the other musicians? Why today is serious music? I mean, even jazz. I mean, serious jazz go completely apart with popular music, with what's rotated on the radio.
In my mind, I've always been searching for a pop audience. Because that's what I played to when I was a kid. I played songs that were popular by Nat King Cole, Benny Goodman's group, and things like that, and all of the great songs by the top singers who were mostly in the pop range. Even though I grew up with blues singers and R&B, and I was with singing groups, and I did the organ trio, and then graduated to Miles Davis and Count Basie and all those other. I worked opposite Duke Ellington's band, and I substituted for Ella Fitzgerald. Can you imagine? My mother says, my son is substituting for Ella Fitzgerald tonight. Can you imagine what that did for her?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a great challenge, don't get me wrong, and I learned something from it, because I worked with the Basie Orchestra when I substituted for her twice.
Did you ever meet Ella herself?
Ellington?
Yeah. I mean Ella.
Oh,
Ella
yeah,
Fitzgerald,
we worked on the same shows together. Quite an incredible person, but she's a lesson person. When you listen to her, you learn something. You experience her, you learn that music is all over the place.
Is she a lot different on stage, I mean live, from what we hear on records?
No, the same.
The same.
It's like Louis Armstrong. Once you hear that sound, it's with you forever. And she is the only one that has that sound. So if you want that sound or that feeling, you have to go to Ella Fitzgerald to get it. I've always wanted to be that kind of artist.
You said you were a vocalist. You started as a vocalist, and which is true. Your velvet sort of voice really made you a star pretty early. But for me, when I started listening to music, records, the Soviet Union, it's hard to get. When I first got George Benson, I said, "Oh, that's a jazz guitarist." And for my generation of kids here in Russia, George Benson was a jazz guitarist. But you still say you're a vocalist. So who are you?
Well, because I was a vocalist first. No, I realized that we've made some inroads, and we've reintroduced the jazz guitar in the same light that Charlie Christian did years ago. It used to swing and make people dance. Today, people sitting in a nightclub on a stool, while people in the background sneaking their smokes, whatever that is, and the club owner's telling you, be quiet, shut up.
Yeah.
How can you become part of the music if you're not allowed to even talk? So I like the era with Benny Goodman. Do. That's me. Making people. And then they stand up and they want to go on the dance floor.
You still do those little gigs? I mean, in small smoky clubs?
No, we can't do that. Can't do that anymore.
Why? Why can't do that? I mean,
the problem is that the public does not understand the difference.
Really?
No. And the club owners start calling you from all over the world. I heard you worked at a club in New York. We'd like you to come work in our club. It's impossible.
And they feel insulted when you say no.
Well, even the airfare for two people is more than their budget. It'd be me and my son on the airplane with no band.
The reason I ask you is about 20 years ago, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and I walked in that little bar, and I saw a familiar face singing, and that happened to be Natalie Cole. And they introduced me. I was a young kid, and I said, "What are you doing here in this? I mean, you sell millions of records." She says, "I like to do that. It keeps the flame alive, you know." Do you understand? Yeah.
I have done it. I like doing it, and I sit in everywhere. I've sat in with all of the greats of our time, at one time or another. I've done a lot of sitting in with Tony Bennett and many other of the female stars, and we've done all kinds of things. But if you get paid for that, then you are a club act. And then that means I cannot exist. That means I got to sell my houses and my cars and start from scratch. That means I'm back to, and all my children's education money is gone.
George, is it true you were a pretty close friend of Michael Jackson's?
I knew him and I knew his family, just passingly so. But I did have an incredible conversation with him once, because we both had the same religion. And once in London, I went down to his room and had a great conversation with him. And he was very intelligent. And then I saw him years later, after we both became dedicated to our particular religion. I saw what the people around him can do. He was a very congenial guy. He wanted to be nice to everybody. In this world, that can be a danger. Because not everybody is in
that what
corner.
killed him?
I don't know. I really don't know, but I know that there was a lot of strangeness going around him. And they tried that with me, but I was a little more mature. I had been around and I had been bounced all over the place myself. So I understood.
Tell me, is much of what we read about Michael Jackson, is much of it true?
I doubt it. No.
So it's all that.
He was a very
fiction.
Although he was sophisticated, he was very simple in his approach. He would knock on the door with a Bible in his hand, and people would say, you know, did anybody ever tell you look just like Michael Jackson? He said, yeah, I hear that all the time. In his strange voice. But he was a very nice, clean-cut young gentleman.
I've got a quote from yourself. You lead a much more modest lifestyle than most of the people of your stage. And you once said, I quote, "The only time people know I'm still alive is when I've got a record coming out." Yeah, well, this is what you said. So, is it difficult for a guy like you to keep a low profile? How do you do that, and why do you need that? Why? Because of your religion? Because of yourself, your soul, your art, your family? What?
Well, I do know that it only takes one negative report can change your whole life and change the way people think about you.
You mean in the paper? What?
Yeah, anybody can say anything. It
You
don't
pay
have to be
attention
true.
to the junk they write about you?
Well, I'm saying they haven't because I haven't given them the opportunity. But once I got very dizzy at a sauna. I overdid it, and I fell out. You know, and I realized I was getting ready to lose consciousness, so I called the medics from upstairs. We were getting ready to do a concert, myself and Al Giro. There were 12,000 people waiting for us that night.
Where was that?
It was in Perugia, Italy. And they took me through the lobby on a gurney, and they had I said, put the sheet over my face. So it looked like they were moving a dead man past all the people who were getting ready to go to see my concert. So they rode me right past them and took me to the hospital, and the doctor said, you know, Mr. Benson, you're not going to be able to do the show tonight. I said, what? No, man, what are you talking about? I said, I can walk, I'm conscious. What do you mean? He said, you know, you're not in good shape. I said, nobody at my age is perfect. There's no such thing. I said, this is what I do, and I got 12,000 people. And my clothes were at the hotel. So he made you know that stuff that they use to make boots out of, you know, just paper.
Oh, yeah.
So he wrapped my foot in this paper and put bands around it and put a little paper thing over top of me. And I went to the gig, got out of the ambulance, or the car, rather, and went past all these people who were waiting for me to come on the band. They didn't realize this paper doll was me.
They didn't recognize you.
So I went, changed clothes, and Al was a gentleman. He stayed on 20 minutes extra because he heard that I was on the way from the hospital. So,
well, what you just told me, it's amazing, and it's not a profession. We started with being professional. It's an addiction, is it? It's like needing a drug. Well, thinking about this, 12,000 people out there. What makes jazz so particularly addictive? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, like classical music, it is special, and you can be an individual. We produce more individuals than jazz than classical music, because classical music, they usually pick one person who becomes the center of attention. You know, you got the great cellist, and you have a few violinists to dominate the planet. But in jazz, you can have thousands of people who are personalities who are well known to the public. And their personality comes from their inventiveness. They do things that nobody else can do as an individual. So jazz has an incredible place in history. You mentioned why it isn't popular, and I mentioned why I would like to make it popular, is to make it something that we all can relate to. They can become part of the music, my audience. And I forgot to put a point on that point you made a minute ago about if they had, when I got sick that time, if someone had taken a picture of me coming through that lobby on the gurney, the headlines would have beat me to the stage. They would have went by internet, and it was George Benson died. Do you know how long it would take to get over that? My career would be over by the time people would go, oh, you mean he isn't dead? My career would be dead. That's what you have to watch.
But you know, in Russia there's a saying that if they bury you before you're dead, I mean, if they say you're dead, it means you live a long and happy life. So I wish you a long and happy life on stage. Thank you very much for being with us. And just a reminder that my guest today was a man that can play and that can sing jazz, the great George Benson. That's it for now from all of us here at Spotlight. We'll be back. Until then, stay on RT and take care. George, thank you. Thank you. Great interview.